So that's what I'm saying. The text is like an object. It's gonna change perspective based on where you're standing. I don't know.
Hello?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I missed you, baby sweet. It was a day.
It was a day.
Please tell me you're seeing this too.
From Seattle, we're Drinking the Movies. I'm Taylor Baker.
And I'm Michael Clausen. That's good beer. What are we drinking today?
The Summer Pale from Hellbent.
That's delicious.
It is. It's been a while. How are you?
I'm great. It's been a hot minute.
Hot minute.
How you doing?
I'm good. We've got some bad movies and an okay one to talk about today.
We do.
And some trailers I've never seen that I'm excited to look at.
As always, what are we watching today?
The Goldfinch in the Kitchen. Which do you want to start with?
Let's start with The Kitchen.
Baby, it's my business now.
They're going to swallow this entire city. You go to war, there's no coming back.
Alfonso Coretti wants to talk.
If we go to Brooklyn, we're dead.
What do you wear to something like that? You get dressed up?
Are you kidding? What?
The Kitchen. What do you think, Michael?
I'm pretty intrigued by this one. So the three lead actresses here, for listeners, are Melissa McCarthy, Tiffany Haddish, and Elizabeth Moss. I'm very interested to see what kind of chemistry there is between those three actresses. They're not three actresses that I would have put together myself.
Agreed.
Yeah, I am interested to see what Tiffany Haddish does in a dramatic role. I don't think I've seen her in anything except comedy thus far. And I just pulled it up on IMDb. It looks like it is a directorial debut from Andrea Berloff. So it will, we don't know what to expect. I'm excited there.
It is nice to see a directorial debut.
Yeah, 100%. I'm very intrigued. What about you?
I think I will have enjoyed watching this movie, but I don't think it's going to exceed a 7.5 for me. I feel like just by watching that trailer, it's going to be 6.5 to 7.5.
Yep.
Just like it's going to do what it wants to do. It's going to be fun. I'm going to be on the character sides. I'm going to enjoy being on these anti-hero character sides that, cross into that gray area where they're like acting heroic, but they're doing nefarious things.
Yeah.
I love the character actors that are cast in it, but it does look a little bit. It reminds me of things that made me weary about like American Animals and stuff that's like really well marketed, maybe that doesn't actually end up panning out the way that they accentuate it to. So I think this will probably be perfectly fine, but nothing that's going to be on our top 30s.
Yeah, I would agree. Maybe not sure that there will be a ton of personality to the direction. It looks a little broad in a way.
Yes, that's what I was seeing.
Just kind of commercial, I guess. But sometimes with the right cast, that can still be pleasurable.
Yeah, so. I liked what I was seeing out of Gleason in the trailer there with some of those close-ups, allowing him to fill the frame. Not a bad choice.
There you go.
All right.
We will see.
On to
The Goldfinch.
When I lost her, I lost sight of any landmark that might have led me someplace happier.
You're the boy, aren't you? The boy whose mother was killed.
All right, we just watched the trailer for The Goldfinch, directed by John Crowley. I think when his name popped up, I heard a slight oof under your breath. Mm-hmm. Is that because you are not such a fan, or you are a fan?
That's loaded. I think Brooklyn is a good picture. I think it did not deserve its Oscar attention. And I think that Crowley has a very repetitive sense of tone, emotion, and I know exactly what he's going to do, right? Like, he took another book that is critically acclaimed and has turned it into another movie with another up-and-coming promising actor, repeating his formula, a lot of the similar tones. For me, I don't know about the color usage, but like the warmth tones and the way that it was framed, it just felt very, very repetitive. I feel like this is going to have a similar ending to what Brooklyn had with that bittersweetness and growing up and, the harsh realities of life. I said oof because I feel like I know what I'm going to see already, and that's a bummer.
Yeah, it doesn't look like he has really stepped out of his comfort zone.
No.
I agree, I think, with most of those sentiments, but, I do really like most of the people in this cast, which is not nothing. It does feel a little sentimental. I don't know that I would call Brooklyn heavy-handed, but it was maybe just a little...
It got close.
Yeah.
But because of the twists along the way and how she comes into owning her own self, it stays away barely.
Yeah, and I think that was partly thanks to Saoirse Ronan. I think she kind of just held it, on the cusp of being a little too tearful. I don't know. I worry he's kind of on the boundary here again.
Not to mention a stunning lack of Sarah Paulson to be found in these trailers.
I agree. Are you an Ansel Elgort fan?
No. I believe that he has the potential to make me a fan, but I haven't seen enough projects back to back. I've been told to watch Jonathan. I haven't gotten to Jonathan. I heard that was a transformative performance for him. Baby Driver shows a lot of promise, and I think that with the right stories and the right people around him, he can be one of the better male performers coming up, like Lucas Hedges and Timothée Chalamet. I just haven't seen enough, but I wouldn't rule him out, and I have nothing against him. I think that he is talented. I just haven't seen a range from him. I've seen kind of a one-trick pony, and I'd like to see some more tricks. It's kind of like I feel like Chalamet's been exposed a little bit as a one-trick pony at his age, and I feel like once he's 30, he's going to be able to get to a broader range, but right now he's just kind of, repeating the whiny routine as far as the characters that he's able to play, and I worry that Elgort's kind of playing these flat characters that are internalizing their emotions.
Yeah. You mentioned Chalamet. Beautiful Boy did come to mind watching this as something similarly involving family and the sort of emotional trauma within a family being sort of the crux of the emotion. I don't know. Hesitant, but we'll see.
Definitely a movie I will watch.
Yeah.
And I don't think I'll regret having watched it.
I think that's fair.
Yeah. So that's as good as these types of movies get, really.
Yeah.
On to Brightburn.
No.
Whatever you've done, I know there is good inside you.
Corey! You're safe now.
I want to do good, Mom. I do.
Brightburn. I could not even tell you who directed this. I don't remember. Should I look it up?
Nah, I don't really think it matters. It's a guy. I think that he directed some other stuff that was also kind of received the way this was. But it is executive produced by James Gunn. I think his cousins wrote the screenplay.
His cousins? Okay.
And then I think that this might have been what he was kind of working on once that whole Disney breakdown thing went through, until he negotiated that Suicide Squad pickup.
Got it. This is maybe filling the gaps.
Yeah, what would that be? Last August to like this February, maybe?
Got it.
He would have been kind of focusing on this project. Probably a few others, but this would be one of them.
Yeah, got it. So yeah, big name attached there. We have Elizabeth Banks. We have the actor best known to
Second Jim.
Exactly right. I was going to say Pam's first husband in The Office. I couldn't.
First fiancé.
You're right. They never sealed the deal. Yeah. You're right. Good point. Who I do like. Not sure I like him here. And the young boy, I couldn't tell you his name.
Agreed.
But I think that's okay as well. I was decidedly mixed here. What about you?
It's a bad movie.
There you go.
No mixed feelings about it. It's a bad movie. It's a bad screenplay. It's cookie cutter as fuck, but there's really, really cool kill scenes.
It is.
And that is
gruesome.
fun. And it was good to see that one dude that was Aaron Paul's buddy in Breaking Bad have a role in a film, even if he did get his jaw busted off.
Oh, I don't know if I remember him from Breaking Bad. I did kind of like him.
He was Aaron Paul's dealer friend. He would deal meth.
Oh, man. Yeah.
And they lived in that methed out house in Breaking Bad.
Wow, good memory.
With all the volume. Well, I watched that show like 3 times, probably all the way through.
Yeah, the moment here when that character is surprised to see the kid in his closet was pretty good. I did enjoy his level of surprise there, and he probably had the most gruesome death by far, from what I can remember. At least the
death
most
shown, probably. Because that kitchen or diner scene's pretty solid too.
Also pretty gruesome. Yeah, I mean, I guess to the extent that this movie does work for me is it kind of gets by just on the simplicity of it, right? I think it's a pretty uncomplicated narrative of this kid showing up on Earth and he's evil just because. There isn't a lot of exposition behind it. I think I kind of appreciate that. And it's mostly just about him wreaking havoc for no particular reason. That doesn't make it particularly rewarding.
Well, it's because he's a wasp, dude.
He's a wasp?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
It means everyone else is a bee.
Oh, metaphors.
Remember that in the movie? Yeah.
I do. I don't know why he ended up going after the nice girl in his class and not the bully. I think that was a mistake on his part.
I think there's a lot of mistakes on the screenplay's part.
Mm-hmm.
It does a lot of telling, very little showing.
I don't know that I would agree. I mean, I don't know that it did too much telling. I think that was actually what I liked about it, was that there wasn't... I didn't feel like there was that much exposition.
I think for people that are super familiar with comic book movies, specifically this story, origin story, which is Superman's origin story, it was like just a bunch of telling with no like actual authenticity to it. And so if you're familiar with the story, it feels like you're just being told the same story instead of having an authentic add-on to it, like why it's behaving this way, where this originated from, anything like that.
Yeah, so that's one thing that I should say that I don't know going into it, is like, if there was ever sort of like a comic iteration that did imagine Superman was bad. Like, did that actually exist?
Yeah, Red Sun would be one of them, where he landed in Russia instead. I think that was a comic book in the 80s. There's been other iterations of Superman being evil, for sure.
Yeah, so coming into it without like any foreknowledge about like the actual comic book origins of it, like, to me it did at least feel kind of just different and fresh in that way. Like, I can't say that I can really think of another movie in which two parents were dealing with an evil superhero kid. It just kind of got by on its not particularly creative, but its originality. It just felt different to me. Not that I want 10 more of these. I have to say,
I don't know that I would call it original if it's based on a comic book.
Well, right. Agreed. I mean, I have no familiarity with that. So as a
so you've never seen like Man of Steel?
I did not see Man of Steel.
Okay, it's literally the same plot.
He was bad in that one?
No, but like landed farm, Kansas.
Got it.
Mom, dad,
but he's a good superhero.
Yeah,
right?
but like all the dynamics are the same, right? It's like doing a biopic about Hitler and saying it's fresh, even if it follows the biopic formula. Like, it is an evil biopic, but it's still the same formula.
Yeah, that's fair.
But he's a painter. No, he's bad.
Man. The painting. I'm not sure why Elizabeth Banks's character needed to be such a terrible painter. There was some pretty garbage production design throughout this movie. Like, one of the paintings she does, it looks like she just kind of grabbed like an already completed landscape painting and then just put like a purple smiley face on top of it, and they hung it in the hallway. I'm like, it's just like a weird touch that doesn't help define this character. I'm like, I don't understand what this lady's style is.
I thought it was kind of like an abstract landscape. I didn't feel like I could make the judgment of whether it was good or bad. That's personally
being harsh.
I need more time with paintings myself. to make that judgment.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Fair enough. But yeah, not to overpraise this by any means. I just think that
it's
never
definitely
bored me.
fine.
Mm-hmm.
It's just fine. And if you want this movie, this is the movie you want. Like, if you want the bad guy movie, this is definitely, like, that movie. Like, if you're, like, an angsty 14-year-old that's getting into metal right now, it's probably a great movie.
Yeah.
It's just we're not in the age where this would be a great movie. But, like, the end credits, like, there's a problem that I enjoyed those more than I enjoyed the film.
Oh, yeah.
The found footage stuff, where, like, he's just terrorizing shit en masse.
Yeah.
That felt more like Chronicle.
It did feel like there was almost a little more reality to that.
Yep.
Whereas the rest of it feels just so sort of just poorly directed that it doesn't really resonate. As parents, it's really thin. I mean, I think there is something, if you're going to give it any credit, like, not that it actually handles the theme well, but the just idea of what a parent is supposed to do when they have something so impossible to accept about their kid. I mean, talk about an underexplored theme here. It's there, it's just not really tapped into in any way, right? Yeah,
it's like the writers didn't realize that was the most interesting part that they could explore.
Right. I mean...
and I really feel like they didn't explore anything. Like, they just wrote what would be done, and then it happened. And, like, almost everything that is said only serves the plot. Like,
yeah.
And to me, that's telling. That's not really showing. Like, showing is dragged across concrete. Showing is wildlife, where we get to know these characters, and then these things happen, and it doesn't feel like these characters' words directly led us to that thing on purpose by the writer. It just feels like what happens is more consequences of the life they're living. Whereas this does not feel like consequences of the life they're living. It feels like the dialogue is just about telling us how they're going to get to the next plot point, which to me is telling, not showing.
Yeah. There's nothing terribly organic about any of the delivery or behavior, really. Yeah, I would completely agree. And
like how he comes up with his costume.
Yeah.
The moments when he discovers his powers.
Yeah, I mean, there were some little touches I liked. I kind of liked the shot, of the red sort of billowing out from the shed, and you're hearing whatever that sort of gurgling is inside the shed before he actually ever gets in there. There were just some little touches here and there that kind of kept me mildly intrigued, I'll say. Enough so that I was never just outright bored. That's kind of the last thing I want with a superhero movie, whether he's good or bad, is to just be bored, right? I never got to that point with it. But yeah, it just feels like a missed opportunity when, like, there's stuff there that you really could explore, like the parents sort of dividing over what to do about this. I mean, that could actually be kind of interesting.
I know. Let's go hunting. I'll just shoot him in the back of the head. It'll be fine.
It was that is one approach. That's what he went with. Didn't pay out real well.
That is a better comic book choice. Like that wouldn't be a terrible comic. Like those scenes, the scenes framed in that way. Like it doesn't work in a motion picture.
Yeah. But yeah, there were other things that just didn't really even make sense to me. That is weird because it is so simple in a way. Like, I was really sort of surprised that there was sort of this to do about the gun as a birthday present. I kind of thought he was going to end up wielding that gun, but he didn't. Nothing really came about from that, right?
It was just telling us, the audience, how scared the dad was of the son.
I guess so, but I wasn't sure if at that point he had even started to really suspect it yet. It was just like he just didn't want to.
He was. There was a build up to it where he was thinking that, like, his kid was responsible when he broke that girl's hand. And
that was prior to the birthday scene, maybe.
Yeah, when he broke the girl's hand, and then before that was he killed the waitress, and like they were. Like he's beginning to suspect his son, and like...
Oh, no. See, I think they're at the diner for his birthday, right? So I think it's I think that birthday scene is pre-diner killing.
Oh, is that the same diner? Okay, maybe you're right. It's been a little bit since I've seen it.
I don't know. Anyway, it's a quibble.
There's like, I remember there's a steady buildup of the father's mistrust in the son that starts like very near the beginning.
Yeah.
When he like starts, it's just like the way he's behaving versus the mom and the dad. Like he's treating them differently.
Yeah, for sure.
What do you think about super villain movies in the marketplace? This is our first one post Shyamalan.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not completely opposed to it. I would not hope. The fear with something like this is that this is the bar that has been set, in which case I think the bar is pretty low. I don't like that. That said, I think with the right director, it could be pretty entertaining.
We both agreed that Venom was fun.
Yeah, I would agree. Venom was fine. I kind of feel like the same way about the Purge franchise, which I always felt like should be more entertaining than it is, but the craft was always just kind of shoddy. But if you get the right kind of genre director in here, I feel like I'm just beating a dead horse bringing up Jeremy Saulnier every time. But like, I think he could make these super intense and gripping and thrilling.
If you gave him creative control.
For sure.
True Detective season 3 episodes 1 and 2, we saw what it was like to take away creative control from him.
Exactly.
And that's why he left the project on such bad terms.
And probably why he wouldn't sign on to one of these in the first place.
Unless it was an original.
Yeah.
That he could have creative control over. Yeah. And that's what I think is interesting, is a totally original IP.
Mm. Yeah.
You know, because we're going to get Venom, we're going to get the Morbius or whatever with Jared Leto. It's part of the Spider-Man villain universe. And then we've got Joker. So we've got these big licensed properties making villain movies. But if these original IP villain movies have profit in the marketplace, it'll be interesting to see who takes a stab. You got to think Jason Blum's going to want to do that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Legendary loves to acquire properties that are profitable, so they're probably going to be in the race.
Yeah. It's hard not to just want to take them one at a time, but I would say that this isn't a super great start, if that is what we're in for, is another dozen of these or so. But I would probably show up just to see what's next, I guess. What about you?
It depends on my mood whenever it releases.
What else
and when it releases. Yeah. Like if it's holiday season, I'll go watch some good stuff, but it's as stale as this month of May has been. Then I'll probably watch it, since it'll be better than half the other stuff that's on the screens.
That's probably when they'll come out, right? It's about this time each year.
When it's dead.
Just to kind of fill in the gaps. I am almost surprised that like these would even be going to theaters. Like these kind of seem like something that would be maybe better fit for streaming. At least this one, which does feel kind of small in a way. But I don't know. We'll see.
The perfection.
What is happening to me? I'm burning up.
It's gonna be okay.
Oh, it's not. Oh, God, it's not. Listen to me. Something is wrong. Something is wrong with me.
Lizzie, I know. That's why we need to get you help.
I'm dying. I'm dying.
All right. The Perfection, a Netflix original starring Allison Williams. I think the other actress's name is Logan Browning.
I think that's right.
Yeah. We watched this for first impressions, which I think we were both positive, or we were both looking forward to it.
And we were far enough away from the screen to miss any of the problems that it has.
Yeah.
CG-wise.
Yeah, exactly. I'd kind of like to go back and watch the trailer now. I don't really remember what exactly we knew, what kind of information the trailer gave us versus, the feature itself. But I remember being pretty psyched up after the trailer dropped and we discussed it. But yeah, I can confidently say that it was a letdown for me.
Yeah, I was wrong.
Yeah, there you go.
I agree with what Gabby had to say. It is a piece of trash film.
Yeah, Gabby was not a fan whatsoever. I can't say I was ever outright bored. I thought I was sort of on board with some of the things it was maybe trying to do, especially more as I've thought about it in hindsight, but I did not find the direction or execution to be particularly
It was a poor
effective.
man's Guy Ritchie movie. Right?
The comparison I keep seeing is to The Handmaiden, which is
I've
very
been
hard for me
hearing
to
that
hear.
too, and I don't understand how that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think The Handmaiden is a masterpiece. That's one of my favorite movies. It's always very hard when you hear a movie you don't like compared to a movie you love. You're like, can we please separate
Well,
these
that's
two
the thing.
movies?
Like, I knew what was happening as it was happening here, and The Handmaiden, it takes you by surprise. And then when you go back and watch it, it's stunning how meticulously crafted it is.
Oh, yeah. I agree. Yeah, so let's start there. So first of all, we have Allison Williams' character, Charlotte, I believe her name is. She was this talented cellist whose career was halted because she went to go care for her mom. Her mom passes away. She's kind of getting back into the game. She reconnects with her mentor.
Her mom passes. She builds up a plan to free this girl from her previous rapist.
So at what point did you sort of know what this was up to? Did you suspect right away that she was
at the event?
She had good intentions or bad intentions?
Bad intentions because I saw the trailer.
Gotcha.
Didn't know if it extended until I saw the dude with the glasses. Mm-hmm. And it just became clear that this isn't really,
So it became clear to you that she did not have
we're introduced to pills in frame during the death scene of the mother, if I remember correctly. So that's when I began to incorporate pills into the plot. Because, this is just basic telegraphing by the cinematographer or the director. It's the same shit we ran into with that Chloe Grace Moretz movie, where I just knew everything was going to happen ahead of time. Once you watch enough movies or read enough books or whatever the fuck it is that happens to me, I know what... That's the next logical thing you do. You introduce this, and then you make them look over here, and then you actually do that with this. Remember when you saw it back here? And I couldn't see the magic happen with The Handmaiden because it was so meticulous. Mm-hmm. This was, I just saw the whole thing telegraphed. Especially when you see Logan looking at her hand while her arm near her elbow is erupting with bugs, and she's staring at her hand. There is some terrible CG editing based on the direction that the actors were given here.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, this is not something I would hold up as a example of great direction or craft by any means. And that's where I think it sort of kind of came down for me, is that it's just not compelling enough in its execution. I mean, I will confess that I did not see a ton of these plot twists coming, but did not particularly find myself gripped by the process of getting there.
There's this introduction formula that particularly this film and that other film have, where it's everything you're introduced to is the most mundane details are going to matter if they're shiny and they're included in the frame. That's the pill bottles. That's the dude's glasses when we're introduced to him at the party. That's the meat cleaver when they're getting the food made in China. Right, because then she has the cleaver. She's using the pills that are shiny. The guy with the glasses, there's just this formula that I see being used visually. That just is just autoplay for me. Okay, got it.
Well, yeah, I should clarify. I mean, to me, it was clear that Allison Williams' character had something violent in store for Logan Browning's character. We know that much from the trailer. I knew that the pills are going to be involved. I think that was clear. It was not clear to me until quite later what role the instructor was actually going to be playing in this, and whether or not Allison Williams' character truly was vicious in any way, or the extent to which this is actually to the benefit of Logan Browning's character. That didn't really... I couldn't have said that I saw that coming. But just the process of getting there was not that thrilling. It's just not that fun.
It's not a good movie either.
Yeah.
There's that. Its message is convoluted. It doesn't make clear claims. It's what the fuck even is it, in that end scene? We're now that we both lost opposing arms, we're going to become a symbiotic organism that can play something beautiful while we torture this guy, but let him hear what he wants to hear. what is the message you want to convey here? Like, it's just so convoluted. Like, it loses its own aims along its convoluted way.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in hindsight, I kind of found that to some extent I could kind of see the first act as we're definitely led to believe that Charlotte, Allison Williams' character, has something bad planned for Logan Browning. It's definitely sort of playing with this expectation.
You think
of
so?
Her.
In the first act?
I thought so for sure.
I thought
we know that she's
I thought they were trying to force the romance and the plague. And then the beginning of Act 2 is when they expose her for being negative.
It's certainly possible. Just maybe it's just because we know in the trailer.
I guess it depends. Are you breaking this down into 5 or 3 acts?
I'm thinking about everything up until Charlotte pulling out the meat cleaver. When I'm thinking to myself, I know she has something in store for Logan Browning's character that she's not telling
because
her.
Of the trailer.
Yeah,
but do you think that the film was trying to do that?
It's really hard to separate it now. I mean, I really think
they were sincerely doing that romance. It seemed like they were trying to be sincere about the plague introduction.
Mm-hmm.
Like it just seemed like they weren't angling for her to be bad. It's just like we both know, like it just accidentally telegraphed it.
Yeah,
or something like that.
I guess I did feel it maybe playing with this stereotype of sort of the jealous bitch. She's finally has an opportunity to re-enter the game as a cellist. And so the expectation
there is a tone of that, isn't there? Yeah.
Yeah, the expectation I have is that she maybe sees an opportunity to enter this girl to get the spotlight back for herself. So, it sort of is using that expectation of this maybe being a jealous bitch kind of character against us in a way, right?
This Get Out character.
And then subsequently we see Logan Browning's character get her hand chopped off. We see Logan Browning coming back to get revenge on Charlotte for doing so. Now you almost have this kind of like catfight thing going on, right? When they finally confront each other, she wants revenge against the first person that we've been identifying with. So you kind of have these first 2 acts that are mostly about 2 women being pit against each other. And I do think competition is sort of like a theme here, right? Like the instructor's introduction is about a violin or cello contest, right? So, I do think there's something there the movie is after about women being pitted against each other and the idea of collaboration over competition. But I do think there is something also very thuddingly literal about what we discover the men were doing to them in light of how sort of twisted and requiring of suspension of disbelief that everything else before that really required. It just doesn't really feel very creative.
I feel like the whole thing isn't creative, though. Would be my conjecture.
I would agree, except that, the whole idea that Charlotte's plan was something as elaborate as convincing this girl that she was having hallucinations in order to chop off her hand. That's how she decided to go about saving this girl. That's pretty ridiculous. That's certainly not something any ordinary person might do, rather than just telling them, hey, you're being brainwashed, right? At least that is but that's some
the
effort
thing they
at
want you to bite
storytelling.
on. That's the thing they want you to bite on in contemporary culture, where we all are rallying. Most of us are rallying against Scientologists right now. Mm-hmm. And, we're seeing the Catholic Church reform and try to cast out its known child abusers and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I think they're trying to force something that isn't there. Mm. And they're using really, really basic plot attenuators almost. These basic symbols of, here's the shiny glass. Seems like there might be something in the bottom of that glass, since we're looking from the bottom of the glass up at the top, doing an undershot on these 2 girls while she drinks this cup on the stairs and then looks at this guy puke.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean...
And then, how does it end? She's pouring the alcohol for these men, even though she only has one hand. Yes, this makes perfect sense. The one-handed girl will pour the drinks. That'll be efficient.
Yeah.
There's a very forced symbology that this whole shtick has. And whatever meaning might be interesting along the way is lost by the sheer mechanics of how they execute the plot.
I would agree. Mechanics. That's probably a great word for it. It's mechanically flawed, and not particularly well suited just for a sense of intrigue. Like I think it's kind of an issue with who you're kind of meant to identify with in a way, right? I mean, there's something about in The Handmaiden when these reveals finally happen, when something turns out to not be what you thought it was. It's partly that, like...
The fire.
You thought one thing was going on in a character's head, and it turns out to be something else. Whereas, like, I don't know that I ever really was in either of these characters' heads.
Agreed. I wish that it would have followed that kind of first act, like... Is this a romance or is this like a Black Widow scenario? Like that was more intriguing, and I didn't have as good of an idea what the emotions were on either person when they were still romantic. But as soon as it exits the romance and turns into this, we're going from point A, we got to get to point C film, that's where it just lost me. Yeah.
I mean, I think it kind of just flubs the relationship in part one, because it raises
to flubber.
Yes. The idea that Charlotte could be dangerous, also while wanting us to be kind of swept up in their romantic possibilities, just makes it sort of difficult to be particularly curious about what either one of them have in store for the other, because there's this kind of confused sense to me of like what it is I'm supposed to be wondering about. Like, in a way, Logan Browning's character kind of seems like someone I'm not supposed to be particularly fond of. She's this successful one. Charlotte's the one who lost her mom and lost all of her opportunity. Like, I don't know. It just doesn't get quite something right about what it is.
Well, it's trying to force a bad message. I think is what we notice, right? Because basically all the men are evil, and all the women with evil actions are excused. That's essentially what happens along the story of this film. Every single main male character is bad, killed or tortured. All the women are drugged or manipulated, and therefore excused from having any ownership of the plot. And I think that's like where it just rings hollow.
Is there a woman character who you thought, like, when you say ownership, like,
they should have let the female character that was the wife or whatever of the dude with the glasses.
Yeah.
Just be evil. Like, just let someone be evil instead of be drugged. Yeah, like, just let some of these characters be characters. Don't let them be caricatures. Like, everybody was just kind of this caricature of what they decided they wanted the narrative to have a message about.
Yeah,
instead of having an authenticness, right? Like, there are bad actors in both sexes. Why can't you just let one of the female characters be a bad actor in the story? You know?
Yeah.
They just couldn't do it.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, except that, like, this is partly about, like, men and women. I mean, I think I'm okay with it sort of making a divide. In this case, when there aren't that many characters anyways.
To me, it's like Allison Williams arguably does something evil by having her cut her hand off. Then that girl arguably does something evil but has an excuse because she was in a cult.
Mm-hmm.
Then the other girl does something arguably evil, but she has an excuse because she was drugged. Like, it's like all these people that are doing bad things have this excuse because of this thing that these guys did. And it's like, that's not interesting. Let's like have some agency for a female character to be bad. Because they want to be. Because they like perfection. Like, that's more interesting to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think I would agree. I think that sounds like a different story to me.
Sounds like a better story.
Yeah, that is entirely possible. Yeah. I don't know that I have a whole lot else.
Yeah, I'm good.
Shall we move on?
Let's do it.
All right, moving on. That's perfection. The perfection.
People don't pay to see Reg White. They pay to see Elton John.
Sorry.
I know.
Rocketman.
Rocketman. Are you an Elton John fan?
I am. I'm not like a huge fan, but I grew up with my dad loving his hits and like listening to that on the radio. Yeah. So like I know a lot of the hits, and I always am in a good mood by him. Definitely a bigger Elton John fan than I ever was like a Michael Jackson or David Bowie fan. As far as pop goes, like Elton John's more my style.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm mostly in the same boat. I know the hits, really don't know the deep cuts. Can't say I'm
Did not get any of the references that all the older gentlemen around me were laughing about every time there was an envelope handed to someone. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I got that sense too. My theater was pretty full. I definitely feel like there were maybe things here and there that the true fans knew that I didn't.
Yes. Did you hear that when like what's that dude's name? Jamie Bell would hand over an envelope of lyrics, or like a collection of lyrics, and then like all these old dudes in sandals would like have this reaction, and I'd be like, I have no fucking idea what's going on.
You're just like, I'm so glad you're enjoying
It was
this.
very much the Bohemian Rhapsody crowd, once again.
Oh, yeah.
And I was in the same theater, in the same screening room. So it was very similar, yeah.
There you go. How'd it sound? Let's start with that.
It did sound good, but I'm very unhappy with the song choices in the film. I don't feel like they ever let a song just play and show me the song. And I felt like they skipped through the songs too much. Like, I would have liked to just sit with the song for a bit. Kind of that way that... Yeah, the way that Cooper in A Star Is Born kind of let us just sit with some of these new songs that he created for the film. I would have liked to just spend some time with Egerton being very passionate about this performance, because he was very good in this performance, but he never gave a full performance of one song. And that's a disappointment.
Yeah, if we are in for many more rock biopics, I do hope more of them are like A Star Is Born. That's a better bar, I think, than Bohemian Rhapsody for me.
Well, this is Dexter Fletcher, who I think did the pickup shots and finished Bohemian Rhapsody.
Right.
So this is very much, you have to compare the two.
Yeah, I know. It's hard not to. It just that same feeling that I'm like, let's keep the bar high. Let's not start there. I was driving to work this week, and on the radio, the DJs were talking about Rocketman, and they invited some critic on. I don't know who the critic was, but that was the first question. What is it better than Bohemian Rhapsody? And I'm like, I don't know if that's the right starting point here. We should still look at it on its own terms.
And that's a complex thing. Like, is it more cohesively the same? Yes. Is Bohemian Rhapsody better performance-wise, as far as emotions, like getting into the character's head? I think so.
Really?
I think so.
Interesting.
I think that last third of Bohemian Rhapsody is so crucial. And that relationship that he has that actually develops over time, that is sincere with Lucy Boynton, is completely missing here. The closest thing we get is his relationship with Jamie Bell, which is very, very brief moments.
Yeah, I did find that to be the biggest disappointment, because I think that's what I was maybe most interested in. Like, I feel like that's sort of something distinctive about Elton John. Not that I know that many rock musicians approach to the craft, but I'm not that used to seeing musical biopics where the star's success really depends on a partnership with another guy who's just a friend. That just felt so unexplored. I just think that would be
especially with such a good actor.
Yeah, that could just be such a fascinating relationship that doesn't really get explored in any meaningful way. They have their moments, I think, when their relationship sort of waxes and wanes, but
that's really just like a dialogue, interior.
Yeah,
say this.
And it's shallow.
Okay, we're going to do dialogue on the exterior. He's here. You guys you guys are going to say this, and then in 20 minutes you're going to make up at the end of the movie, okay?
Yeah. Which is frustrating because I think they're both good. Like, I think there are moments when
they're both very good actors.
Yeah, and I think there are moments when they're looking at each other and both sort of sensing that this is like a big moment for them together. Particularly, I think it's when Elton John's playing the song called Your Song. And
was that at the Troubadour?
I think it was in the studio.
Okay.
When Jamie Bell's still, behind the boards. Right. And they're just kind of having that moment. They're like, this is a good one. Those moments work, but just, that whole, a very large layer of complexity is missing. Which is frustrating, but at the same time, I mean, I did find myself sort of, I found it kind of hard to resist the musical format in terms of it being so fanciful and that feeling quite right for a guy who couldn't be more fanciful. I don't want to say that this is like a really risky picture. I don't think it takes that big of risks. I don't want to overstate that, but its willingness to at least try and do something a little more cinematic with its structure and the musical format, I can really kind of get on board with. Whereas,
you think that it was well structured?
I do.
I fucking hate the framing device.
See, that worked for
completely
me.
Threw me off of the whole
Really?
picture. Because I already know that I'm separate from him. So all the him that I'm going to experience in the film is separate. Because I already met him. He's here. He's at this point in time. And now he's narrating to a group in NA or AA or whatever group that is. And that's not really him. And look at how he's dressed. He's clearly going to physically break off the horns, take off the wings, and bring himself back down to being a man instead of being some sort of a fallen angel. Okay? It's just so forced. Like, I think stuff like that just doesn't work for me, and I might be the odd man out there. But it's just super forced, and it removes the timeline for me, so I can never be on the wavelength of when we're going through the motions of, like, here's Reggie, he's with his mother. I don't believe that, because I know that I'm being narrated to.
Yeah. I mean, I think for me it worked in the sense that what's way more familiar to me is the eventual drug period in a musician's career always playing as just another kind of beat, another sort of hitch on the path.
But do you feel like they actually explored it the way that they did in Bohemian?
I don't think either one of them explored it particularly.
Okay, I have to agree with you there, but I feel like Rami was able to be Freddie in that house when he left the band, where we just got kind of this supercut of all these people coming in and out and ripping him off and him spending all this money, and a very physical transformation happening to Rami's face.
Yeah.
And the over time him excluding himself from these people. And that when he bought Lucy the separate house, like there was this clear devolution happening that was paving a straight line of what it was like to be Freddie. Although it's called Bohemian Rhapsody and it's trying to show us the other parts of Queen, it's about Freddie and it's showing this clear downfall. I didn't get the sense of a clear downfall in this film.
I would agree. And while I think Bohemian Rhapsody, I think Rami Malek does a good job of sort of embodying what that downfall looks like. I think to the extent that it is successful, it is entirely, in my opinion, because of him. I think this is...
And the editor. Damn good editing.
Yeah. I think this is instead trying to put Elton John's musical achievements on par with him having conquered his addictions. I think it kind of brings that to the foreground and makes that as much a momentous period in his life and less a story beat by bringing it right out in front and saying the story of Elton John is as much a story of having a downfall and recovering as it is, just the making of the hits. I think it just gives all of those songs and all of the sort of magic of it this bit of poignancy, because you know the whole time that while we see him as a star ascending into the stratosphere, at the same time he's going down. You have these two trajectories at once that I think does give it a little bit of distinctiveness from your traditional biopic, where the drug period is the 3 out of 4, quarters of the movie. That make any sense?
Yeah, I feel like I preferred Vox Lux's expression of that idea more, though, of showing like going up while you're going down. I don't like Vox Lux, but somewhere in between Vox Lux and this is like what I would have preferred to see with like actual moments. Yeah. Like this is another thing that's just got this glossy sheen on it and all this production value, but it doesn't have like sincere moments. It's just like always chugging along to try to meet its 2-hour, 1-minute cut or whatever it ended up being. Like it lacks that humanistic little bit that makes me feel like I got to know Elton or feel with Elton. And I felt like that framing device kept me from ever getting on that same path and suspending my disbelief and being like, I'm on this path with Reginald. He just became Elton. He met this person. Like it just felt like it was, here's Reginald. Now he's Elton. Like it was just this thing where they were snapping and like, you're doing this now, instead of me saying like, wow, I feel like I just met Reginald and now Reginald's becoming Elton. Like there's that lack of sincerity on my part of like, wow.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess I feel like we have the device in Bohemian Rhapsody isn't that different. It's just, I mean, he's not starting out as an addict, but we do start out with Freddie Mercury as we know him as the star he ultimately came to be, and then we flash back.
I didn't know enough about him to know what that flashback entailed, and I became on it for that, and that was because they were performing, right? And we didn't really know what else was going on. Like, we just knew that there was going to be another performance at the end. Whereas with this, we knew that he was in a meeting. We knew that he was in costume. And, like there's a lack of openness to its ending, the way that Bohemian Rhapsody has an openness. Especially, who knows? Like, maybe I'm projecting a lot of this stuff because I know that Elton lived. Maybe the difference is that we know that Freddie died, so that changes the way that I interpret the story. And my openness to try to read into when he died.
Yeah, it does make, the ending's very different. I mean, to me, it's suggested maybe Elton's best days are still ahead of him, right? As a dad, happily married with 2 kids, right?
I mean, maybe personally, but if you listen to the crowd, once he said, I'm going to quit doing drugs and drinking, my entire theater booed and said, that's when your song sucked.
Right, exactly. I mean, I do think this is staying true to Elton in that sense, and not as much,
and that's one of the
working less as just fan service.
That's one of the other things that I wonder about is, are these biopics going to be better if we don't let the person they're about shape their narrative?
Oh, like their literal involvement in the project?
Yeah, to make it positive and make it uplifting and frame it this way so that it does this, because that might be getting in the way of some more authentic storytelling. That, of course, you don't want people to do that because then you're going to be exposed for your worst moments because those are the things that we gravitate to as people. Yeah,
I was sort of just like exasperated by how it handled the mean manager role.
What's his name? Robert something?
Rob Stark. That's all. Yeah. That's all I know him as. I can't tell you that actor's name. But just like how fast it decided he was going to be the evil counterpoint without really like any dimensionality to that character, or it's just so simplistic.
Or how about that one kiss when he's the backup band for the African American group on tour in London? Like it's so there's no lingering, there's no development of character emotions. Like it's just beat.
Yeah. The manager thing just surprised me because it felt like it took Elton's story and shoehorned it into that familiar formula, right? Like you saw it in Bohemian Rhapsody, you even saw it in A Star Is Born, where you have the bad manager,
or you have the good manager and you're bad.
Yeah.
Isn't that like the Star Is Born scenario where Sam Elliott actually cared about his brother? And
Sam Elliott did, but there was the young guy with no socks,
right?
You know, he was the bad guy, the Paul Giamatti role.
Yeah,
that's who I always think of. He did it in Straight Outta Compton. Like it just sometimes feels like there's like the screenwriting between each of these is just so frighteningly similar. It's like it's just like an assumption that you have to have that at this point.
Or maybe Bryan Singer shot less of Bohemian Rhapsody than we thought.
Yeah.
And Dexter Fletcher's just took his Rocketman project and improvised it ahead of time.
Yeah.
Hard to say.
Yeah. Did you ever see the movie Love and Mercy with John Cusack and Paul Dano?
I think so.
Yeah. That movie came to mind as well. That was about the Beach Boys. And Paul Dano playing... gosh, why am I blanking on the lead singer of the Beach Boys' name?
Don't look at me, I won't know.
Yeah, I did find... that came to mind during Rocketman. I think if anybody was particularly disappointed with this movie's exploration of kind of like what goes into the craft, I think that one really kind of gets it right.
Yeah.
Worth checking out.
I think one of my favorite... It's not a song or a band movie, but I think one of my favorite like group of boys telling a story is Lords of Dogtown.
Oh, yeah, the skateboarding one.
Yeah, I feel like that just... There's something about it that's so sincere and lets each character develop their own thing, but intertwined together. I'd love to see someone try to move back towards telling a band story that way.
Yeah, and there was...
the sincerity of love.
Definitely a lot more texture to that one.
Yeah.
Whereas these, all kind of have a tendency to feel a little airbrushed. I mean, that has some grime to it.
Yeah, but sincerity, ugliness, and a bit of that mid-90s vibe where, like, I'm gonna go do this fucked up thing at this party, and
yeah,
because that's who those people were. This is like the best interpretation of being a coke addict. Like there's no unflattering shots, and maybe that's one of the biggest problems. Is like there's no honesty here.
Yeah. So yeah, as a movie, suggesting that we're kind of in for a bunch more rock biopics. Does this make you particularly excited, disappointed?
Makes me nervous, but I do question how much better these can be without the involvement of the groups. And I do question, specifically with this, whether or not Elton looked at this as another way of putting on a costume.
Ooh. That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, we have a handful more coming out this year, right? Or at least ones that rely heavily, I think, on rock music as part of the appeal, right? You got the Beatles one coming out yesterday. Blinded by the Light.
Yeah, Bob
the
Dylan
Bruce
one.
Springsteen.
Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah. Not quite in the same arena. What's the Renee Zellweger one? Isn't that a music biopic too?
I don't know. I just know about her TV show that just came out on Netflix.
Oh gosh, maybe it's a TV show. I thought it was Judy Garland.
Oh, she's doing Judy Garland.
I think so.
I'm interested.
That I suspect that will be better.
I do like this switch back to trying to do musicals.
Yeah. But to me, it is. I do like them being musicals, like this is, which Bohemian Rhapsody was not. Like we see, where each of these songs kind of came from, but the way some of the songs were introduced in Bohemian Rhapsody reminded me a little bit of how, for example, Han Solo's last name was introduced in Solo. That little moment,
I think
right?
it's funny.
Okay. Some people like that.
It's the right amount of cheese. It's goofy enough to be fine. It's a nice little zing before a very, very heartbreaking moment.
Yeah. I don't know. It's interesting to see where this will go. I really am apprehensive about my movies becoming too reliant on music for their appeal. I want them to remain cinematic,
character driven.
Yeah, and still have be attuned to like definition of characters and that kind of thing. And I think the biggest appeal here was that it did try to have those moments of fantasy and movie magic to me, to complement its music and sort of find that fit of form and content, because this guy was such a larger than life character,
larger than himself. Person.
Yeah. It's flamboyant, and so the form should be a little flamboyant. And I think that gets something. It got something a little right for me.
Less for me, but I still enjoyed it.
There you go.
Have you ever seen Dexter Fletcher's Eddie the Eagle, also starring Taron Egerton?
No, I have not.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I was going to ask you which one you prefer more. I prefer Eddie the Eagle more.
What about Kingsman?
Kingsman? First one, definitely probably his best movie as a performer, Egerton. Or his best movie that he's been in. His best performance is probably this or Eddie the Eagle.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah.
How about you?
This is the only thing I've seen him in, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't see Eddie the Eagle. I didn't see Kingsman. I don't know.
Didn't see King Arthur? No, Robin Hood.
I didn't see Robin Hood.
Jamie Foxx.
Jamie Foxx is in that?
Yeah, he plays Friar whatever.
What?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It got stunningly bad reviews.
I believe it. Yeah, I'm sure he is crossing his fingers that this works.
Yeah, I think it will. I think it's projecting at 22 million. Ma's raking in 18 right now, and Godzilla's over 50.
She's coming for him.
She is.
Ma's coming for you, Darren.
All right. That is the episode for this week. Talk to you guys next week.
Adios.
Run! Go! Get to the chopper!
We have to go.
I'm coming with you.
That was brilliant.
You're the best!